Hi, Assalamualaikum. Welcome to my channel. I proudly want to welcome you guys to Sport Reporting SEL 151. Well, my name is Ilan Aimin Muhammad Aslan, but you can call me Madam L. So today we are going to go for chapter 1, which is the introduction to sport reporting. Before we begin, I bet that every one of you have read the newspaper, so you should be familiar with sport reporting or in the sport section. So in the sport sections, there are um, lots of sport reporting that have been produced or published. Okay, so sport reporting is actually where we report on a sports event. Okay, so we're going to look for more about it in the next slide. Okay. Right. Before anything else, we need to understand the history of sport writing because every single thing has their own history, right? Even you were born in a previous years, so definitely you have your own histories of your when you were born, when you were children, up to your age right now. So same goes to sport writing. We need to know the history first. So sport writing had begun in the early age of 850 before century. So this is where the Greek Empire, we call it as a Greek Empire moment or Greek Empire and ancient Greek with their sports game such as wrestling, Olympics, what else? Lots of games that have been played in the Greek moment or time. Okay, and then a man named Homer wrote about wrestling because during that time, Spartans, wrestling, Greek area is ancient time, right? So the sports writing had begun in a very early age, before centuries. Then in 1800, the Americans were started to write about sports, but only a few remember. So um, at this time, sports were also, we call it as a limited area. Not all sports have been played, not everybody knows sports, and not everybody can participate in sports. Early age, before centuries also, only the noble were allowed to play or to um, participate in sports, and only the noble had the right to organize an event. Okay, so this is the constraints that they have in the previous years, okay, in history, um, back in the time. But nowadays, everybody can participate in sports. Everybody can organize sports. Okay, so right after that, in 1914, there is an evolution of writing where the sport journalism editor had been recognized as job. Before this, they were not recognized as jobs. Were doing it for fun, okay? But now, in 1914, the evolutions of writing happens, and the sport journalism and editor had become job, had been recognized as job. Okay? Right, that was the history back in for sport writing in the whole wide world. But now we're talking about the sport writing in Malaysia. Okay, mm, actually, in the 1900, the sport section was familiarized, and the sport journalists in Malaysia were born. But in between 1876 and 1941, people are actually talk more about Merdeka. So sports sections have become a very small amount of right or small amount of reports. So people don't really bother about it until in 1975, Muhammad Ali came to Malaysia. Then only people talk about Muhammad Ali, talk about boxing, talk about how legendary he is. So that was an epic moment, and we can call it as an evolution moment for sport writing in Malaysia. Okay, as you can see in the picture, There is a picture of newspaper during accordingly at that time of 1876 until 1941, where people talk about Merdeka. Right. There is also the needs of understanding the definition of terms. Okay, sport reporting is actually a form of journalism. Okay, because people write or people talk about it. Okay, but it is creative and non-fiction, which means that every single thing is a fact. Okay, sport writing is about write or report facts of a sporting event. Okay, so individual athletes or the sport related issues can be the dominant subject of that particular writing. So you can talk about if in Malaysia you can talk about Azizul Hasni Awang, you can talk about Safi Salih, you can talk about who else? You can talk about the coaches as well. So you can talk about every single thing, but the either is the individuals or the group or the team had become the dominant subject of that particular report. Okay, sports writer or sports writer is a journalist who reports on the sports, yes, and then sport journalism is the essential element of a news media organization, because nowadays, as I mentioned earlier, people can participate in sport, people can become fans, people can be whatever they want to be. Okay, they can become the national athlete, they can become the world athlete if they want. So definitely sport had become a very broad industry in the whole world. So sport journalism is definitely an essential element of news media organization, because in the newspaper you can see there's a sports section. Even if you look at the Astro channel, they also have a sports channel. They have ESPN, Fox Sports HD. So those are the things that makes sport journalism is one of the essential elements, because people now want to know what is happening about the sports in they like. For example, I like tennis, so I want to know what is happening, what is the latest competition, who is competing, who is the world number one tennis player now. So this have become we can see it as evolutions in 2020 and before this as well. So sports now have become the lifestyle of every single person in a whole wide world. Okay, all right. So the news reports provide answer to 6 questions, which is the 5 W's and 1 H, which is when, what, where, why, who, and how. So these are the things that is very important. And then the news is a report. The terms of news. Okay, what is news? News is a report for current event. Anything that happened currently is considered to be news. For example, if you look in the paper nowadays, people are talking about COVID, and every single day we have reports on COVID-19 about the cases, how many cases per day, and then what happened due to COVID-19. For example, Hari Sukarnegara had the uh, had been had been delayed due to COVID-19. So this is what we call as news. This is the current event that is happening. Okay, it is something. It is an information about something that had just happened or will happen soon. Because, for example, we can predict from the reported cases of COVID-19, we can predict that maybe we are heading to the third wave of COVID-19 in Malaysia. So what are the preparations that we need to do? So that is also news, because we are reporting on something that will happen. So we predicted it. So based on the current situation. So that is news. Okay, news definitely is about things that happen currently or recent thing that happened, and it is an information, a facts about something that has happened or will be happening. Okay, right. In order to write news, there are few or there's several news values that you need to understand in making that your news can be newsworthiness. Okay, it's something that is worth to write about. Okay, first you should have a timeliness. Timeliness means that we need to report on something new. We don't report that something happened in the past um, 1 year or in the past 2 years. When you report about things that happened the past 2 years, it does not consider it as news. Okay, it becomes something else. For example, it can become a documentary when we want to share about it. So timeliness is very, very important because when you're reporting the news should be something new. Okay, and then the impact of the news also relevant to the newsworthiness, because if the impact is high, then your news will be high value. For example, we're talking about COVID, PKPB in Selangor, in Kuala Lumpur. Maybe you're not affected because you are in Perlis, but if you live in Sepang, which is included in Selangor, you will be affected by the impact. So the impact definitely will decide the newsworthiness of a news report. Okay, and then proximity definitely the distance between the news report and where you stay. For example, this is just a simple example. If COVID never ever been in Malaysia, but it was reported happens only in China, Wuhan, it will definitely not give any worth of reading for that news. But because COVID now has entered Malaysia and it happens around us, even in Perlis also there are reported cases, we feel that we are very close to that thing, we are very close to that reported cases or viruses. So we feel that, oh, it's so near. The proximity plays a very important role. Whenever things or the incident happen near to us, we will give a lot of more attention towards it. Okay, and then controversy is one of the point that relate to the newsworthiness. People really love controversies. For example, during COVID-19, PRN in Sabah had been done. There's an election in Sabah, so that is a controversy where people talk about how relevant is doing a PRN during a current situation. But we need to understand that the situation urged the PRN, that PRN need to be done at that particular point. So that is controversy, and that news got a very broad coverage in Malaysia. Okay. And then prominence. Prominence is where an important person had become the subject or the dominant topic to be talked about. For example, during the PRN, a few individuals had come to do something. So that individual, if they are a very known person, then the news will be a very big news. But if that particular thing happens or received from a very ordinary person, people will not be bothered to read about it. Okay, and then we have currency. Currency is about the current event. For example, we should have Olympic Games, but it was also be delayed due to COVID-19. So that is the news. Okay, and then we have oddity. Oddity is an unusual events or unusual things that make people really want to talk about it or really want to have it. When we talk about extraordinary things, unexpected events that happens that generate the interest that we really love to read about it. For example, we never knew about COVID-19, but then when we know about that, and we know how dangerous this virus are, so we have the tendency to read more about it. We want to know about it more, how to prevent, how to cure, what to do if we have the symptoms. So oddity, the extraordinary things that will generate the public interest. And then we also have emotion stories. Emotion also relevant to the newsworthiness because when we have a human interest in our news, it will make a very good items. Okay, for example, what is happening now in Indonesia? There has been a riot happens in Indonesia due to the changes of their law there. So when we read about it, put on the emotions on reading on how bad the situation is in Indonesia. So we feel sorry for them. So let us take a time and pray for Indonesia. We because Indonesia is our neighbor, right? So let's have some time. Um, Pray that Indonesia will be better, inshallah, and everybody will be in a very good condition. Okay, right. So there you have um, the news values. The two more news values is the usefulness and the educational value. Having these two also make a news is something worth to read about because, for example, as I said, we want to know about COVID-19, how to prevent. So you can see that the news is useful because you can get the information to overcome or to prevent yourself from getting COVID-19. For example, you need to wash your hand, you need to put on hand sanitizer, you need to clean yourself, your house, you need to sanitize your house. So this is a very useful news. Okay, and then it also have an educational value. So these are the news values that relevant in order to make a news worth to read and write about. Okay, right. Next, we have the 5 traditional fundamentals of journalism. First, as a journalist, you need to report the truth. Okay, you cannot be biased. You cannot like be judgmental. You need to report the truth. If you know the truth of it, you need to report all of it. Okay, and then a journalist act independently. They work on their own. They get their own informations. They write on their own, and then they are transparent. Okay, transparent. Mm, and then um, they also be selectively sensitive. If they know that the news is sensitive to certain races or culture, they need to understand that and they need to write respectively towards the sensitivity. And you need to place ethics over the law. Even the law said that there is no harm in writing about the news, but you need to put your ethics first. Is it ethically should be done, or is it like um, we are not being ethical enough? So you need to place the ethics over the law. Even the law said that there is no wrong in doing it, but you have to put an ethic. Is it ethical to do so? If not ethical, even it's not wrong according to the law, you shouldn't do it or you shouldn't publish it. Okay. Alright, so this is the 5 ethical journalism principle. First, you need to be accurate. Jangan report or don't report things that is you're not unsure about that things. Tak pasti, jangan kongsi. Okay, so as a journalist, you have to um, stick to this principle. Okay, you need to be very independent because you're working alone. You need to find your own informations. Okay, you need to be very fair with whatever you do. You need to be very fair. Accountability, you need to be very accountable in what you're doing. You need to know the consequences, and you should have a humility in yourself because you need to remember that one of the news values is emotions, right? You need to have a humility. Don't simply bash people or judge people without knowing the truth of it yet. Okay, right. So that is all for chapter 1 today. I hope you guys do understand. If you don't understand, you can just repeat this video all over again and you can listen to it. And if still you have a question, you may ask me in our meet or even in a group WhatsApp. Okay, I hope that everybody will have a very good day ahead, and I hope to Hope to see you guys soon. All right. Don't forget to take your lunch. Don't forget to smile a lot, and don't forget to keep yourself clean. Don't forget to sanitize your hand. There's so many things not to be forgotten. Yeah. All right. Have a good day. Hope to see you guys again. Um, that's all from me. Thank you. Don't forget to subscribe and like.